Hi everyone, my name is Monique, and today I'm going to be showing you how to play a game that is currently on Kickstarter called Lairs, designed by Christopher Westmaas and published by Kids Table Board Games, who are helping sponsor this video. In Lairs, two rival adventurers are tasked with building and exploring a dungeon created by their opponent. The adventurer who scores the most points by disarming traps, defeating monsters, and collecting treasure will secure a place in the prestigious Adventurers Guild. This is a two-player only game where players must try to escape from a lair built by their opponent. And so today, I'm going to be showing you how to play it. But before we begin, I do need to mention that everything that you see here is considered a prototype copy of the game, which means things are subject to change in the future. In addition, in celebration of their campaign, the publisher will be giving away one Kickstarter pledge that includes a copy of the game. So if you'd like to enter the giveaway, please leave us a comment down below telling us what you would put in your lair if you were to build one, and make sure to include hashtag Lairs anywhere in your comment. But make sure you also check the description for all of the details. For more information regarding the game, we've included a link to their Kickstarter campaign in the description below. Last but not least, if you enjoy content like this and would like to see more in the future, please consider subscribing. And with that, we are ready to begin. So if you'd please direct your attention to the center of the table, we're all set up here for a two-player game of Lairs. Welcome to my lair. And so like I was mentioning, in this game, players play as adventurers who are competing for a spot in the Adventurers Guild. And in order to win, players must first construct their own lair and then race to escape their opponent's lair, while also scoring points by picking up treasure chests and defeating monsters along the way. And so what you see here are actually the components set up from one player's perspective. Each player has their own player board, as well as 6 action cubes that start in the spent basket. You'll also have a map that you'll be using to map out your opponent's lair, as well as your own lair, which you'll construct and place behind a player screen. In addition, it is ideal for players to be sitting on opposite sides of each other. For demonstration purposes, I'll be showcasing the board without the screen, but just remember that it's there, because it's integral that you keep your lair hidden from your opponent. Now, before we continue, I just want to mention that the game will also include a few tuck boxes and envelopes that contain additional, more complex mechanics. You'll only open these and introduce these mechanics whenever you feel ready. And so for your first few games, you're welcome to play the base version of the game, which I'll be showcasing today and includes a majority of the main mechanics. So let's start by first setting up our lair. When setting up your lair, each player has 20 walls, which are placed along the borders of spaces, with the perimeter of the lair considered to be walled off already. And when placing walls, keep in mind that each space must be fully accessible, which means you cannot fully close off a space using your walls. In addition, you may choose to exclude up to 3 wall pieces from your lair. But you must place all of the other items, and these are called features. Features come in 2 different types. First, we have goals, which are good things, and they come in the form of treasure chests as well as the exit. And we also have hazards, which are bad things that come in the form of traps as well as monsters. Now, features are placed in spaces, and each space may only contain 1. In addition, you're required to place all of your features, and once your lair is fully built, you must be able to draw at least 1 path from the start to each of the 4 goals that does not pass through 2 hazards of the same type. As an example, if I were to draw a path from the start to this chest going this way, this would not be a valid placement if this were the only path, because it crosses through 2 hazards of the same type, which happen to be a trap. But because I'm able to draw an alternate path that does not pass through 2 of the same type of hazards, then this is still a valid placement. And that must be true for all 3 treasure chests as well as the exit tile. And now this layer is done. And once both players are finished constructing their lairs, then the player who is first to finish gets to decide which player takes the first turn. Then, starting with the first player, on your turn, you are considered to be the explorer, who must explore your opponent's dungeon. Your opponent, on the other hand, is the builder, who must give you information regarding their dungeon. Now, at the start of your first turn of the game, your opponent must first tell you where their starting tile is located, as well as the locations of any walls bordering that space. And so in this example, my opponent's start tile is in space C1 with 1 wall to the north. Over the course of the game, each time you discover the various spaces of your opponent's lair, you'll mark known spaces with a circle to indicate that you know of any features that are in its space, as well as any walls surrounding it. Then, as the purple player, I'll use my player marker to keep track of my location in my opponent's lair. Now on your turn, you'll always start by moving all of your energy cubes from the spent basket to the fresh basket. And you'll be spending these energy cubes in order to take actions. Now, in the base version of the game, there are 4 different types of actions that you can take that allow you to move around the lair. The simplest of actions is called Creep, which requires you to spend 1 cube of any color, placing it into the spent basket. And this action allows you to move directly into an adjacent space, but not through walls. And before moving, your opponent must first tell you everything about the space. And so as an example, if I wanted to creep east into space C2, I would mark the space with a circle because the space is going to become known. And now I would mark any features that are in the space according to the key at the bottom of your map, as well as any walls. Now in this example, unfortunately, there is a trap, which is marked by an upside down triangle. In addition, there is 1 wall to the south, and so I would mark my wall as well before moving my marker into the space. And since there was a trap in its space, the downside to the creep action is I must now suffer damage from the trap, which in this example is fatiguing 2 fresh cubes, which are energy cubes specifically from my fresh basket. If instead there were a monster in its space, then I would take damage from the hungry blob, which is the only type of monster in the base version of the game. And unlike the greased pit, the hungry blob requires you to fatigue any 2 energy cubes, which means they don't have to be from the fresh basket. Cubes that are fatigued are placed into the fatigued basket. And at the start of your next turn, all cubes in the fatigued basket are moved into your spent basket. And they're not moved into the fresh basket until the start of the turn after that, which means on your next turn, you'll have fewer energy cubes to spend. Fortunately, instead of taking the creep action, I can choose to peer into an adjacent space, spending either 2 energy cubes of any color or my 1 green perception cube. The advantage of peering into an unknown space is that your opponent must still tell you everything about the space, making it known, but then you'll have the option of whether or not you'd actually like to move into the space. So in this example, when peering into space C3, I've learned that the space contains a monster, but no surrounding walls. And I can choose to either stay in my current location or move into the new known location. And since there's a monster, I would be forced to either fight the monster or, in the case of a trap, disarm the trap. And in this game, anytime you need to either fight a monster or disarm a trap, you must first purchase dice by spending 1 energy cube per die. And so in this example, if I were to spend 2 energy cubes, I would purchase 2 dice, and keep in mind that these are not normal 6-sided dice. The die faces are 1 through 4, with a majority of die faces showing 2s and 3s. I would then roll all of my dice in order to perform a check. And in the case of attacking a monster, I would deduct the sum of my dice from the monster's health, which in the case of the hungry blob will always start at a 6. I would then do 4 damage, decreasing their total health to 2, which I would then write in the monster's space. And since I was not able to defeat them, I would now take a damage, having to fatigue any 2 energy cubes. And disarming a trap works very similarly, except if you were not successful, then you would take the damage and you would still remove the trap. And now that I'm in the monster's space and the monster is still alive, I can choose to either continue fighting the monster by purchasing additional dice, or I can take any action to move out of that space. Because in this game, hazards do not prevent you from moving. Now again, in this game, the object is not just to find the exit, you also want to score the most amount of points. And one of the ways in which you can do that is by defeating monsters. And so as an example, if I were to spend an additional cube in order to roll 1 more die, hopefully I'm successful. Yes, I rolled a 2, which means the monster is now defeated, and my opponent must now give me the monster token to place on my player board. The first monster you defeat does not score you any points, but the second monster will score you 2, and the third monster will score you 4, which means if you are able to defeat all 3 monsters, then you'll score a total of 6 points. In addition, in this game, it's not enough to find the exit tile. In order for you to actually exit your opponent's lair, you'll need to have collected a combination of either 3 treasure chests, 3 monsters, or 2 treasures and 2 monsters. So you will most likely need to defeat monsters along the way. And of course, the other main way to score points is by finding your opponent's treasure chests. Whenever you discover a treasure chest, you're going to draw the top card from the treasure deck, as well as a face-up card from the 3-card display. Treasure cards will typically score you a base amount of points shown at the top left-hand corner, as well as a variable scoring condition shown at the bottom of the card. And treasure cards are placed behind your player's screen, kept secret, because at the end of the game, you're going to choose a maximum of 4 of these cards to score face up, and any additional cards are going to be placed face down, scoring you 1 point each. And there are a wide variety of treasure cards in the game that typically score you additional points depending on which other treasures you are able to find. Now, the last 2 types of actions that you can take on your turn allow you to move quickly. They are the hustle action that costs 2 energy cubes of any color, or your single yellow quickness cube, allowing you to take the creep action up to 3 times in succession. However, if you enter into a non-empty space, then your hustle ends immediately, so it is a little bit risky. And the last type of action is the backtrack action, which requires you to spend specifically your yellow quickness energy cube. And backtracking allows you to move through any number of known empty spaces. And so, especially later on in the game, this is a very useful way for you to go back through your lair in order to go in a different direction or revisit any known locations. But that's essentially it. As soon as you run out of energy cubes, then your turn ends. But before ending your turn, if you had any energy cubes left that you did not spend, you can choose to conserve up to 3 of them, placing them in your conserved spaces. Then on your next turn, when you choose to use them, each cube may be spent twice. So you're saving energy 1 turn in order to use more energy on your next one. And once your turn ends, then play proceeds to your opponent, who then becomes the explorer while you become the builder. And as soon as a player meets one of the 3 exit conditions and is able to locate their opponent's exit tile, then that player may choose to exit the lair, signaling the end of the game. And the first player who is able to do so will score an additional 4 points. At that point, the other player will have 1 final turn to exit the lair, and if they're successful, then they'll score 2 points. And then you'll go into endgame scoring, and you'll add up any points earned via treasure chests as well as from defeated monsters. And at that point, whoever has the most points wins a space in the coveted Adventurers Guild. And that's essentially how you play Lairs. Now again, this game is currently on Kickstarter, so for more information regarding the game, I've included a link to their campaign in the description below. And as a reminder, if you'd like to enter the giveaway for a Lairs Kickstarter pledge, make sure you leave a comment down below with a hashtag Lairs. And thank you again so much to Kids Table Board Games for sponsoring this giveaway. Otherwise, thank you all so much for watching the video. I really hope it was helpful. If you enjoy content like this and would like to see more in the future, please consider subscribing. Thank you. Bye.